I feel disconnected from whatever happens in church life. I go and attend the Sunday worship in the church, but I don't feel that I am in it when the service is in progress. I feel increasingly unable to connect to whatever is being done as part of the organized Christianity that's in progress all around me. Is something wrong with me? Welcome, Vanakkam, Swagatham, Namaskaram. Just yesterday, I got a call from a lady member of our YouTube Sangamam or YouTube Fellowship, or shall I say YouTube Companionship, sharing the predicament she is in with me, as I indicated in a very inadequate manner right at the outset. She is in a predicament. She is in a predicament. And she feels deeply troubled about it. She wants to know if something is wrong with her. And she feels that this change in her is comparatively of a recent origin, though I'm inclined to believe that this must have been in the offing for a while, because changes of this kind just does not happen like a bolt from the blue. When I was listening to this younger sister of mine, or this friend of mine, YouTube friend of mine, I also remembered a call I received several months prior to that from a friend of mine whom I greatly cherish. He lives in another country. He is from the Orthodox Church background. He's a very competent scientist, quite successful and respected in his area of work. He has distinguished himself, leads a very happy family life, is blessed with 3 children, all of whom are doing quite well. He said something similar. He said when he was in Kerala, he was very enthusiastic about his church and he was proud of being an altar boy. But now, when he regards all of that in retrospect, he feels that serious damage happened to him in the process. It suppressed his individuality. It diluted his capacity for originality. It crippled his capacity for individuality. So much so, he said to me with great emphasis, he said, and I'm virtually quoting him from memory, said, I'm very keen that my children should not be exposed to similar influences early in their life. I do not want their personality, their individuality to be damaged. That's a concern of a father regarding the possible harmful effect of overexposure to church life as it has come to be organized. I can go on and cite more and more examples of this kind, but I think for the time being, these 2 examples should suffice to alert us to the fact that there is something seriously wrong in our midst. And as I share these thoughts with you, I search my own conscience to ascertain if these thoughts are provoked or occasioned by any personal motive, any ill will on my part towards church. And honest to God, I can reassure you that there is nothing of the sort. I decided to take up this matter for consideration with you because this is an issue with which I am seriously concerned, particularly as I regard the serious decline in the quality of the personality of Christians, particularly in the context of Kerala. It is a universal problem, but that problem is even more acute in Kerala. In fact, I find that the more custom ridden, the more stereotypical, the more mechanical, the more homogenized the idea and practice of Christianity and church life becomes, the more harmful it gets in its impact on personality formation and the empowerment of human individuality. I believe that individuality, which is in religious language described as the uniqueness of the personality given to every individual, is part of God's very precious and sacred intentions towards humankind as a whole. It's inherent in the biblical insight that human beings are created in the image and likeness of God. God is infinite, which means that the person of God is inexhaustible in its possibilities. The total possibilities of the cosmos cannot and do not exhaust the plenitude and the possibilities of God. Therefore, each one of us, I believe very ardently, is meant to be an expression of a very, very small nanoparticle, if you like, or a microscopic element in the person of God. That element of the divine is in us, though it's present in a very, very small measure. This insight, of course, exists in Hinduism. That's why the Hindu spiritual philosophical insight says Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. The individual and Brahma are one and the same, except that the individual exists on the plane of time and finitude, and therefore is unable to reflect the fullness and the glory of the divine in its entirety. And in fact, the Indian mode of saluting each other, the Namaste, is interpreted as a gesture of acknowledging the presence of the divine element in the other. And in that sense, it strikes me as a very beautiful way of saluting each other. So, therefore, I believe that wherever the spiritual tradition has been and remained authentic, there has been respect for the individuality of the believer. And wherever religion triumphed over spirituality, and the godly emphasis on the uniqueness of individuals gave way to the collectivization process of community building, which homogenizes everybody and makes all human beings conform to one common mode or mold, which does serious damage to the development of individual personality. Religion in this form of homogenized distortion of individual uniqueness is a serious problem, and it does enormous harm to personality formation, and it is certainly not in the plan of God for us. About that I'm very sure, if my understanding of the life, the public ministry and the teachings of Jesus Christ amount to anything at all. Now, I say this to constitute an entry point into the religious predicament shared with me by many people, including the two instances that I cited. Now, let's try and understand what this means. I beg of you to have patience with these inquiries, because unless and until we are willing to invest our time and mental energy in advancing towards a higher and clearer degree of understanding the essential spiritual issues highlighted by these individual predicaments. We will spend time together, but there will be no gain or benefit accruing therefrom. And I have to say this once again, I proceed slowly and deliberately to allow time for ideas to sink in, as well as for all my friends who participate in this process to have the leisure, even as they listen to me, to think within themselves. I can speak like the flight of a rocket, but that's of no use to you, and those who expect me to speak in that fashion are merely slaves of the present pattern to which they want to conform, and also they want to force others to conform. But let me assure you that this cultural craze is utter stupidity. It's meant to have no beneficial effect on anyone. It creates the impression of doing something without that the effort involved amounting to anything at all. Now, what is the fundamental issue in religion? And how does it differ from spirituality? If you look at the spiritual luminaries of the world, take for example Guru Nanak, take Sri Narayana Guru in the Kerala context, take Jesus Christ, take Prophet Muhammad, take any person with spiritual insight and spiritual life. You will find that people of that category are dramatically, strikingly, radically different from the custodians and the keepers of religion, of religious establishment. What is the main difference between the two categories of people? The main difference is personality. You compare the personality of Jesus, the personality of Lord Buddha, the personality of Sri Narayana Guru, the personality of Guru Nanak, with the personality of any bishop, archbishop, etc., you will be shocked to realize that one is the antithesis of the other. One is exactly the opposite of the other, though every bishop, archbishop would claim that they are the representatives of Jesus Christ, but in their personality they are a visible, striking, and jarring contradiction of the personality of Jesus. Unfortunately, they are themselves completely unaware of it, which is in itself a problem. Now, how does this huge difference in personality come about when we move from the domain of spirituality into the domain of religion? And that's precisely what needs to be understood if the predicament articulated by these two friends of ours is to be understood aright. When we are functioning in the spiritual mold, that predicament is characterized by freedom. Freedom. In fact, I would say you can equate spirituality with freedom. Any person who is spiritually enlightened becomes totally concerned about and committed to the freedom that every human being is entitled to. He is certainly furiously defensive of his own freedom. He will refuse to surrender himself to the various customs, practices, the mechanical, stereotypical rites and rituals that people create. He will preserve for himself the freedom to think according to his own uniqueness, his own special personality, and the freedom to act in conformity or in fidelity to that, which is a better way of putting it, in harmony with his understanding, his insights, etc. Whereas when you come into the domain of religion, there is no thinking, there is no question of individual uniqueness being recognized or even allowed. Everybody is required to conform to a set stereotypical pattern or an assortment of stereotypical practices. They're called customs. The only merit of these customs is that they worked long time ago, a very long time ago. Whether or not these customs connect to the human condition at the present time is nobody's question. But and how and in what sense these customs are relevant and helpful to believers who are living in vastly changed circumstances, historical, cultural, economic, political, etc. In the present time, nobody is bothered. We have inherited a set of customs. These customs were valued by our great ancestors. And therefore, these customs must be complied with by each one of us, whether or not you find it useful or meaningful. And it is not even necessary that you understand the meaning of these customs. Never ask the question why these customs and practices. For example, 2-3 years ago, I incurred the flaming animosity of the Marthoma Church in Kerala simply by raising a question. The question was that when the funeral rites of the Metropolitan, that was Bishop Irenaeus, uh, was being telecast, I was aghast, and I was seeing it for the first time, frankly. It's my ignorance. That he was actually seated in a chair. The dead body being seated in a chair and taken to burial was something of a novelty to me. So in my note, in my Facebook page, I raised a query. What is the meaning and origin of this custom? Now, I raised a simple point of query out of my curiosity to know if there is any meaning to it. Because if there is a meaning to it, and if it's beneficial for a person who is dead to have his burial organized in this manner, then I would like my body to be disposed of in this manner, if there is any merit to it. But rather than explain the reason or the logic or the sense of it, immediately the whole of the Marthoma church started shrieking at me, saying that I am an enemy of the church. Now, this is precisely what I call the despotism of custom. The despotism, despotism, the despotism of custom. Something was done in the distant past. It was done by the people that we respect, so it must be continued. Never ask the question what it means, how it is relevant, etc. It is the custom, is a custom of the Marthoma Church. Keep it till thy kingdom come. Now, this is utterly stupid, downright stupid. And this kind of attitude, I have cited one instance to be symbolic of the total attitude that prevails within religion as it is organized within churches. It does serious harm to the development of human personality and individuality. What this kind of religiosity promotes is the homogenization of individuals. Every individual is to be like every other individual. The reason why Jesus discouraged corporate prayer, every corporate prayer means prayer experienced or undertaken or practiced together as a group. Every corporate prayer is also a public exercise. And every public exercise carries or entails the duty to conform. Now, 500 people or 100 people may be sitting there, one person prays, and that person's prayer is supposed to be the prayer of everyone, though the 100 people or 500 people sitting there are each one of them unique individuals with completely different life situations, needs, experiences, conditions as regards to the person sitting next to his left shoulder and right shoulder. But when it comes to praying, we are supposed to be all in the same mold. Our predicaments are exactly the same, our needs are exactly the same, our thoughts, our sentiments, our words. And who knows this? The person who leads the prayer, which then becomes a public performance. Why did Jesus say, when you pray, if at all you pray, get into your closet, shut the door after you, and pray to your Father who listens to you in secret? It is actually to emphasize the fact, so this is not taught in churches, It is to emphasize the fact that you are a distinct, unique individual. Your life situation is different to the life situation of another person. Your needs are unique. The truth of your situation is different from the truth of somebody else's situation. And God is personally and minutely, particularly interested in you. And that's a habit of love. Love does not generalize. For example, I have two daughters. When I love them with complete respect for their distinct personalities. I don't say that because you are my daughters, you should be exactly in this mold that I prescribe for you. In fact, I rejoice when the personality of one is different from the personality of the other. God respects the uniqueness of our personality. The churches don't, priests don't, bishops don't. They want everyone to be out of the same mold because it's easy to deal with them in that manner. In the process, what happens is there is a complete disconnection takes place between what is considered to be the religious life of the church or Christianity as organized in church and your own spiritual condition. And the more you conform to what the church requires of you, the more spiritually famished you remain, though you're not free to recognize, or at least you're not free to publicly state that you are feeling famished. And because that is the case, the so called individual believer goes on and on and on and on. But as years go by, this realization gains ground within the individual and a sense of weariness sets in. After all, I am undertaking or undergoing this experience, but it doesn't connect to my experience. I gain nothing from it. It means nothing to me, but I go there because the custom, the despotism of custom dictates that I go there. And also, I formed this habit, what I call the tyranny of habit. So, on the one hand, the despotism of custom, second, the tyranny of habit within me. The two combine to keep me a bond slave as far as religion is concerned, which requires that I disown my individuality and become like a robot with homogenized features. So every Marthomite should be identical. Every Pentecostal must be identical. If you are a Pentecostal, you must not speak your tongue properly, your mother tongue. You must speak in other tongues and make a complete mockery of the gift of speech. If you're a Catholic, then you have to be exactly according to this mold. Now, this is an insult to humanity. This is an insult to the uniqueness of our creation. Now, I want to now enlarge the framework of our discussion so that we understand this issue clearly. If you have a panoramic view of history, you will find that the individuals who have contributed maximally to human progress and welfare, the betterment of humanity, were all human beings with highly developed individuality. This kind of machine-tooled persons who are actually mimicry of persons. They're not actually full-fledged, authentic individuals. They're sort of some kind of a caricatures. They have contributed nothing. Millions may come and go without leaving the slightest mark on the face of history. Whereas one person whose individuality is developed according to the divine plan remains a permanent light to humanity. And a good example of Jesus Christ. That's why Jesus says, I, while I am in this world, I'm the light of the world. And I feel the same way about Lord Buddha. I feel more the same way about Sri Narayana Guru. And if my Muslim brothers and sisters feel the same way about Prophet Muhammad, I'll not be surprised at all. I'm not an expert on Islam, therefore I can't comment authoritatively on it, though I hope to study Islam in a somewhat of a systematic manner without any great delay. I feel sorry that I have delayed this project for such a long period of time. So now this has been the strength of the humankind. But unfortunately, we come into the modern age, you will find that there is a complete distrust of individuality, and what is promoted is homogeneity. And this is my fundamental quarrel with Sangh Parivar. My quarrel or my disagreement with Sangh Parivar, with RSS as its apex body, is not political at all. I am fairly indifferent as to who governs this country because all parties have their problems. I don't think there is a single perfect party, though one party may have greater nuisance value than the other party. To that extent, yes, I may prefer this particular party or that particular party. But my disagreement, my quarrel with the Sangh Parivar is not political at all. It is spiritual. And what is the main point of my disagreement? It is that the total vision of the Sangh Parivar is shaped, defined, dictated by its brutal pursuit of the homogenization project and the utter intolerance of religious, spiritual, regional, cultural diversity, plurality that it entails. The Sangh Parivar ideology cannot but be intolerant because it is committed to homogenization. One nation, one religion, one culture, one language, one leader, even one dietary habit, one way of dressing yourself, so on and so forth. Homogenization, homogenization, homogenization. And a greater danger to the development of humanity cannot be imagined. I hope my friends in the Sangh Parivar camp understand the concern with which I share these words. This is not being prejudiced against a particular ideological bloc. My concern is that serious damage is being done to the development of the human species and the formation of individuals. It's only the developed individual who can make significant contributions to the progress and the well-being of the humankind. And by homogenizing people, we're actually crippling them and keeping them incapable of making contributions to the common weal or the welfare of the humankind. Now, this is a problem not confined to the Sangh Parivar alone. It is a larger cultural issue. After all, my friends in the Sangh Parivar will be very upset when I say this, but I have to say this. Though the Sangh Parivar projects itself as the champions and the protagonists of Hindu religion, its ideological genius is derived not from the Indian context, not from Hinduism. It is derived from the European context of denatured Christianity, which is known as European nationalism. Highly intolerant, completely contrary to the genius of India. Unfortunately, India is being now converted into a vast replica of European intolerance, which is driven by a denatured form of Christianity. And therefore, in my line of thought, and Christians will now quarrel with me when I say this, the Sangh Parivar ideology, sense of mission, purpose, etc., is quite similar to, is parallel to the sense of mission, purpose, outlook, etc., of European Christianity, distinguished by its religious imperialism and triumphalism. These are all broad concepts. I don't have the time within this short video to now take up each one of them and explain. Maybe in course of time we'll have opportunities to undertake all of that. Now, this ties up very well with the modern culture, which is a homogenizing culture. Look at fashion, for example. If a new fashion is introduced in a city in America, to reach all parts of the world within 10 days. If somebody comes up with a very awkward style of awkward fashion and is displayed in the streets of Detroit, it will appear on the streets of Delhi within 2 days because it's a homogenizing influence. We must all be like the Americans. There was a time when the British people felt that all of humanity must be like them. This is what is called the white man's burden. And that was then taken up by Europeans as a whole. Europeans were culturally superior to everybody else. Though the more sensible among them, like Max Muller and others, said that the Indian spiritual culture is way ahead, far superior, more developed as compared to the culture of Europe. But that was a very minor voice in the European tradition. So we must understand the context in which we are living. The modern culture is a homogenizing culture. To that extent, this culture is hostile to, inimical to the development of our personality. So there is a beautiful blend between the church and its homogenizing influence, the modern culture and its homogenizing influence. And it's precisely against this that Paul alerts us in the letter to Romans, chapter 12, where he says, do not conform to the pattern of the world. What is the pattern of the world? The pattern of the world is homogeneity. The pattern of the world is conformity, which the outcome of which is homogeneity. And we are required to conform to certain cultural norms. In religion, it is customs, right? So we are meant to be imitators. Do not think for yourself. Just keep imitating what others are doing. Catch up with your country cousins. Have no individuality on your own. Be a consumer. And whatever is put out in the market, you immediately go buy. Otherwise, you are an inferior creature. Do not think for yourself. There is something called public opinion. You keep abreast of the public opinion and keep parroting whatever is given to you by way of public opinion. Then, of course, there is this massive homogenizing influence called education, which was my field. One harmful effect of education, formal education, is that it homogenizes everyone. Children in the formative period of their life are given the same experience, the same learning milieu, the same text, the same set of ideas, the same way of looking at things. In the process, this idea and practice of education kills personality, individuality. Yet another serious harmful impact on the development of individuality is this modern cultural industrial context, where we are all consumers of the same products. So we are homogenized consumers. A third powerful cultural influence on us which homogenizes us is communication. We are hearing the same thing. People in America, people in Congo, people in Asia, people in Australia, people in the distant regions of the world, they are hearing the same thing because this invasive communication technology has reached everywhere. So you find people in India talking exactly like people in the United States. No difference at all. The same idea, the same sentiments, the same feelings, the same dreams, the same cultural excitement, homogenization. And of course, as I said, public opinion. All this, there's a potent mix of influences and factors that today act upon us to make us conform to certain prescribed patterns. And the outcome of this very harmful process is that we get alienated from ourselves. We never live our own life. We never think our thoughts. We never entertain our dreams. We are required to dream only as other people dream. We are required to dress ourselves only as other people dress themselves. That's why sometimes, if you remember, I did a few videos in which I am seen only in my vest, banyan, if you like. Many people were shocked. I did that mainly to make people aware of the fact that we are slaves of this conformity. It makes no difference whether I'm, fashionably clad or inadequately clad, because I should not be obscene. It hurts no one's eyes if I don't have a beautiful shirt on. I believe what is relevant about me is my stream of thought. I shouldn't dilute that. I shouldn't corrupt it. I shouldn't cheapen it. But other than that, what does it matter? What difference does it make? But because people felt so strongly about it, I abandoned my ways. Now I wear shirts. So please realize, for example, even this idea that I should be speaking very fast, it is nothing but a craze to conform. The people who expect me to conform to a certain speed of speaking, say 120 words per minute, they have no idea whether it helps them or whether it hinders them. It is that they have somehow formed this idea that everybody else speaks like this, especially all the YouTubers they are familiar with. They all speak like this. Why can't this man talk like them? Forgive me, I cannot do that. I'm not here to be like all of the YouTubers. I'm not even a YouTuber. I'm here to think with you. And thinking is a slow process. And in thinking, the silences and the pauses are even more important than the words spoken. Please understand. So, therefore, coming back to the predicament that this sister and this brother of mine shared with me, the reason why now many people feel increasingly disconnected from, alienated from church life, even though they go there, they sit there, they're not in it, as it were. They're not in it as far as this worship is concerned. Worship goes on there. They don't feel involved in it at all. But force of habit, despotism of custom, they go there. But that moment comes in their life when many of them realize it is a futile exercise. And many people have now begun to leave. I can tell you that in my extended family circles, quite a few have completely given up on church services. It's not that they become less spiritual, it's that they become more honest with themselves. It is that they have decided to respect their own consciences, their own line of thought, their own individuality. And they have called it a day as far as doing like everybody else is doing is considered the most important religious duty. They want to be more with themselves, they want to be more honest with themselves, and they want to be perhaps more privately with God, which is an opportunity, which is an experience totally denied in the context of congregational worship. So, in my considered opinion, while church attendance may meet our social instincts and needs up to a point, there is no church service happening today which can meet the spiritual needs of individuals in their individualized, personalized form. If you want to meet the needs of human beings, you have to personalize. You have to personalize the ministry. And no priest, no bishop can afford to do so because they're all trained to and they're habituated to dealing with masses and crowds. When I was a busy convention preacher, I used to address 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, Madam, 100,000 people. Looking back, I'm amused because what was I doing all this while? I was never connected to any individual. It humored my sense of vanity that thousands of people were sitting in front of me, gazing at me, looking completely lost, as it seemed to me, in the kind of magic, the magical spell of my words. It made me very, very vainglorious. It made me very proud and arrogant. And paradoxically, my success as a convention preacher was corrupting me. And this is the honest truth. I'm making a sincere confession to you. Whereas the private moments I spent meditating, thinking, searching myself, identifying areas for self improvement, so on and so forth, and also the private moments I spent equipping myself to reach out to people in a more fruitful, effective, more relevant, personalized manner, contributes to my need to grow personally continuously as well as my sense of personal fruitfulness in life. This is the reason why I have now come to attach profound importance to every word that every individual says, every issue raised with me by any individual makes me think and think and think. And the more I think, the clearer issues become in my mind, and therefore I am able to produce videos of this kind and offer to you as the only offering I can make. I know that I've taken more time than is humanly allowed, but unfortunately, the theme to be handled is of that kind. Still, I have not done justice to it. There's a great deal more to be said about it. I can also entrust the rest of the inquiry to you because all of you are mature and highly educated individuals with spiritual sensitivity and the mental stamina to think. And therefore, I entrust the rest of the inquiry to your private seeking and finding. So, I want to thank these two friends of mine for sharing their spiritual predicament with me, and I want to reassure them that it is not that something is wrong with them, but that they are now onto a higher level of spiritual development. It's like, if you have reached class 10, reading the text of class 1 or class 2 becomes boring, and you won't be able to connect to those texts because you've outgrown them. So, one aspect of your personal growth is disenchantment with whatever you experienced as very exciting or very meaningful, etc. As your personal evolution, your growth and development happens, you will get more and more disenchanted with the customs and practices to which at one point in your life you attach great value. So at that time you must rejoice. It is not that something is going wrong with you, it is that you are evolving from a lower to a higher level of spiritual integrity and enlightenment. God bless you for it. And I want to thank everyone who participates in this process with patience and perseverance. Thank you, and have a wonderful day ahead.